Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Marvin Nemitz Podcast. I'm Marvin Nemitz. I'm glad you could join me today. I was talking with a friend about a week and a half ago, and we had a really good discussion. We were talking about things that were going on in society. We were talking about things that were going on in life. And we got to talking on the topic of vanity. And man, I got to tell you, our discussion actually hit me like a ton of bricks. I love good friends where you can have frank conversations about things that are going on in your life, things that are going on in their life. No judgment, just spiritual things, natural things, and man, the Holy Spirit begins to get involved in the whole thing. It's uplifting, it's encouraging, it's challenging, and the conversation becomes convicting. Vanity, that was the topic. Vanity, of all things. I can't imagine the last time I actually had a conversation on that. I think we've talked about pride, the way that affects almost everybody. Even preachers, the things that we deal with. And, you watch in society this idea of vanity, everybody needing attention, social media, everything pointing to us. I've even talked about podcasts being named after the podcaster, and I did it myself only because I guess I didn't have a creative name for it. Chuck Swindoll took Insight for Living. And everybody else seems to have some pretty good titles. But I didn't do it necessarily because I was thinking about me. I just thought it'd be identifiable. But social media posts, here's what I'm having for dinner, here's what I'm having for lunch, here's me with my kids, my grandkids, my best days, my worst days. But he got talking about a movie called The Devil's Advocate. Now, it's not a good movie. I looked it up. I've never watched it. And I don't recommend you watching it. But there was a clip. It had a classic line. This movie, Devil's Advocate, was about a law firm that turned out to be run by the devil and a young protege that was coming up under this guy. And somehow things got going on, and the boss and the protege wound up against each other in the courtroom. And finally, the young man kind of had a realization of who this guy was, and this guy was actually the devil himself, and he defeated him in the courtroom. And it was all about ego. It was all about pride. It was all about arrogance. It was all about taking advantage of other people. It was all about getting ahead no matter the cost. Again, I haven't watched the movie. That's just, my friend was telling me about the movie, and he had found out about it because there was a clip at the end. This fella who had taken down the boss and the devil, was revealed. He was in distress. All of a sudden, after the court case, his wife, girlfriend, whoever it was, and another reporter told him that they needed to have an interview, that he was the next best thing, that he had a hot hand. And at the end of it was after the guy agrees to do the interview with the reporter morphs back into the devil, who says, "Vanity, definitely my favorite sin." Now, I saw that clip, but it was interesting as we were talking, man, that phrase, vanity, definitely my favorite sin, hit me like a ton of bricks, because we all know pride really is the root of all other sins. But many times, what we do in life doesn't really come across as prideful, but what the enemy brings into our life appeals to our vanity. And I found the conversation fascinating, because I think that we forget how that is one of the enemy's greatest tools. if he can't get you to be unfaithful to your spouse, if he can't get you out in idol worship, if he can't get you out in whatever big sin we might want to name, he certainly will appeal to how we feel we look to ourselves and appeal to how we look to others. If we have ever lived in a time where success is a mantra, where what people think of us matters, with how we look. I mean, I live in a very wealthy community where I can't tell you how many times I've walked into a local store and seen wonderful, precious people who have disfigured themselves with Botox or some kind of body-altering shenanigans because they cared more about how they looked instead of cherishing who God made them to be. Vanity. So I looked up some of the definitions. Vanity is excessive pride or an admiration in one's own appearance or achievements. I've wrestled with this even as a preacher. I've talked about it on here. I've written a book that I haven't published yet, quite honestly, with the realization that I don't know who'd buy it, and I'd like it to get out there and make a difference. But called The Godly Keys of Success, Crossing Out Success, and the title would be Faithfulness. I've struggled with this, where I want to appear successful, even as a pastor. And I minister in a small church. I've had to deal with what I used to consider the pinnacle of success. Big church, big budget, big buildings, lots of people. And God had to deal with my heart in that. And to be quite honest, there are times God still will be dealing with my heart on that. That's probably why this kind of a subject hit me so close to home. I think all of us in some way or another deal with this idea of vanity. It primarily refers to an excessive pride in our abilities and our achievements. A person who becomes conceited or obsessed with how others perceive them. Now, another part of that term, and I want to talk about this in a little while, that idea of vanity is derived from the Latin vanitas, meaning emptiness. It refers to something that's valueless, pointless, or temporary. It can describe something like an effort that produces no results, like a vain attempt. And, you know, the book of Ecclesiastes, and that's what I'm going to speak about in just a minute, describes earthly pursuits, fleshly pursuits, as a vapor or a breath. They're here and then they're gone. Compared to eternity, they just don't last. Worthless, futile, empty. When we were talking, one of the things that kept really coming to my mind was that idea of just in vain. How many things that we're doing in vain? In vain the way we look because we're doing it because we want to be perceived a certain way. Or how many things we're doing that make absolutely no eternal difference at all. They're empty, fruitless. You know, the Bible calls those things wood, hay, and stubble. Those things that we're trying to accomplish in our life that are impressive to other people and maybe even impressive to ourselves, but in reality they make absolutely no difference whatsoever in light of eternity. And I think if we were honest with one another, and that's why I appreciate good friends, to be sitting across from someone after a wonderful, wonderful Sunday morning service, to be able to sit together and give glory to God for what he did, but then to honestly take stock in our own life and allow the Lord to continue to deal with our heart. How much of what we do actually makes a difference? The idea of vanity really highlights our own ego, our own pride, our own self-love. Now, we are to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. I hope that you love who God made you to be. I love who God made me to be. I've grown to be at peace with the uniqueness that is me. Have you grown comfortable with the uniqueness that is you? Who God made you to be? All the wonderful things, all the discouraging things, all the frustrating things, all the unique things, all the weird things, all the beautiful things. How much we do actually is about ego. It's vanity and ego that actually is one of the most effective ways to corrupt people. One of the most effective ways to corrupt, that the enemy uses to corrupt who we are. And it's interesting because sometimes you watch some of the greatest people who have accomplished some of the most amazing things, and then ego gets in the way. A while back, I posted a podcast about being crusty bread, how those that have been brought down with sexual sins had all been mighty men, but that they were ultimately, in all that they had accomplished, that moment of sexual indiscretion reduced them to nothing but a crust of bread. Proverbs talks about that. Well, I think that there are many men and many women that could never be corrupted sexually. I mean, of course, it's a temptation for all of us, but I think probably even more of a temptation is the issue of ego, pride, a desire for adulation, a desire for riches, a desire for achievement. I want people to look at me. I want to feel successful. I want to be successful. I want people to praise me. I want them to recognize me. I want to have gained a lot in my life. I want to have the possessions that people look at and people go, wow, that person's made it, or they've done something in their life. And if you've ever watched, even in churches, the things that we praise, one of the things I've said often, I would love to go to a pastor's conference instead of having the guy that's actually up there who has, is now pastoring a large church and has all those trappings of what looks like success to the world. I'd love to hear from pastors in smaller churches that are being faithful to God, that have done everything God has called them to do, and God is blessing what they do. I want to hear from those people. But I think there is this pull, and we've conditioned because the enemy puts that right out there, even for the most godly, even for the most pure in desire, and then this pull is there. 1 John 2:15 through 17 talks about this vanity, this ego. It says, do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world is passing away, and the lust of it. But he who does the will of God abides forever. So I want to read that in the New Living Translation just to even make it clearer. Do not love this world nor the things it offers you. For when you love the world, you do not have the love of the Father in you. For the world offers only a craving for physical pleasure, a craving for everything we see, and pride in our achievements and possessions. These are not from the Father, but are from this world. And this world is fading away, along with everything that people crave. But anyone who does what pleases God will live forever. Now, if that doesn't challenge you as a believer in Christ, well, you need to go back and read that for yourself and allow the Lord to speak to you. I know it does to me. I felt so compelled after that conversation to make sure that this became a podcast, because it really did speak to me. The love of the world. Isn't that pull just amazing? I mean, it just sucks you in. The pride of life, the achievements, the possessions, everything we see. But if you love the world, you do not have the love of the Father in you. Isn't that interesting? You ever noticed kids that were raised by parents and they know that they're loved, that very little else can really get deep down to them because they know that they are cared for? Have you ever noticed those kids that didn't have the love of their parents, the love of a father, the love of a mother, that no matter how much they seem to achieve or accomplish, it always seems to fall short? I remember telling my kids as they were growing up, I really don't care what you do with your life as long as you're obedient to the Lord. If you become the CEO of a company, great. If you become a pastor or a teacher or a lawyer or a doctor, fine. If you become a custodian, fine. As long as you know that you're following Jesus, we're going to be proud of you and we're going to love you. And there's security in that. You see, I wanted them to know that they would always have the love of their father, the love of their mother. And I believe that God speaks to us that same way. So much of what we do in life is ego-driven instead of spirit-driven. We live in an ego-centric world. Listen, I mean, if you don't think that, just look how self-absorbed so many people are right now. Egocentric, me, mine. It's all about me. Yet really the Christian life is all about the Father. The love of the Father that is in us. You see, the world is fading away, but those who do what pleases God will live forever. That's just powerful. I love that promise. I love that knowing. You know, if you look around, everything that we do really becomes about comparison. We here's what they're doing, here's what's happening over here, here's what you should do, how you should be. We face it, cook like this. Here's what a neighbor's house looks like. Here's the trendiest color. Here's the nicest furniture. Here's the newest fashion. Here's what it looks like to be successful in this field. Here's what it really means to be successful over here. And then it all changes. The target is shifted, and now we got to start all over again. We hear this talk about the desire for greatness. Everyone needs to be great at what you do, great at this, great at that. We hear about leaving a legacy. Even in church circles, what kind of legacy are you leaving? Don't you want to live well beyond the life that you're in now? Well, the legacy is all about leaving a name for yourself. That's why people live on social media. Look at me, look at me. We put our best foot forward. We want to see our best side. Is this side more photogenic than this side? I always tell people, either side that you look at, you're still going to get a pretty good look at that schnoz right there in front of you. Here's the deal. We often compare our ordinary life to other people's best moments, or really their lies and their misrepresentations. You ever notice on social media, no one out there putting out the goofiest thing about themselves. We don't like to share that part of our life. I even remember someone telling me, listen, I want you to go ahead and here's the camera thing. If you don't have a full sanctuary, make sure you tighten up the lens so that you just get you. But on the big days, move the lens out back so everyone can see how full the church is. And you watch, pastors will do that. We all do that. Here's what I want you to see. Crop the picture. I mean, now we've got Photoshop and you can edit this and edit that. You ever seen someone who edited their picture on social media and you're going, listen, that doesn't even look like you anymore. As a matter of fact, I saw you that day and you didn't even look this good. As a matter of fact, that day, I think you had the biggest zit hanging out on your nose and now I can't even see it. I love the honesty of people. I love the reality of life. And I think the older I get, the less I really desire to want to be drawn in by an image. Vanity. You know, the wisest man in all the world spoke about vanity. He spoke about how worthless the things that Satan uses to bring about our downfall really are. It's amazing how much we even allow the vain imaginations. What do people think? What are they doing? Satan will put these things, these worthless thoughts in our head that have no basis in reality. Ecclesiastes 1 through 4, the wisest man started really partaking in life, and he found out how worthless most of life actually was without God. Ecclesiastes says, vanity of vanity, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Everything in the world is vanity. That's verse 1. Now I want to read 1 through 4 in the New Living Translation. Everything is meaningless, says the teacher, completely meaningless. What do people get for all their hard work under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth never changes. Chapter 2, 4 through 9 says, I also tried to find meaning by building huge homes for myself and by planting beautiful vineyards. I made gardens and parks, filling them with all kinds of fruit trees. I built reservoirs to collect the water to irrigate my many flourishing groves. I bought slaves, both men and women, and others were born into my household. I also owned large herds and flocks, more than any of the kings who have lived in Jerusalem before me. I collected great sums of silver and gold, the treasure of many kings and provinces. I hired wonderful singers, both men and women, and had many beautiful concubines. Many. Talk about a guy with an ego. 900 wives and concubines. Really? I had everything a man could desire. So I became greater than all who lived in Jerusalem before me, and my wisdom never failed me. So I came to hate life because everything done here under the sun is so troubling. Everything is meaningless. Vanity, like the chasing or like chasing the wind. You just can't ever grasp a hold of it. Vanity of vanities, meaninglessness. Isn't it interesting that the more you try to gain for yourself, the more you try to look good, the more you realize how worthless all of it really is. I hear more and more people asking the question, what's the point? What difference does it make? Why am I doing all of this? Why am I killing myself? Why am I so depressed? Why am I so discouraged? Vanity. Why am I always embarrassed by what I have or what I don't have? Vanity. Why do I care so much about what other people think? Vanity. Why are those things so important to me? Vanity. I want to look good. I want people to think good of me. I want to be successful. Me. I. Vanity. One of the things that I've discovered is that Satan loves to expose what he's doing in entertainment, and he laughs because he tells us. Vanity. Definitely my favorite sin. That's what he said. And I don't believe that that was Holy Spirit anointed. I believe that that was satanically, prophetically, satanically given to let everybody know, here's what I'm doing, and there's not thing one you can do about it. Well, there is. The lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, the pride of life. And if that's what we're focused on, the love of the Father isn't in us. That hit me like a ton of bricks. How about you? I know I'm loved by God. I do. There ever been a time where you've wondered that? And it's interesting because I've never questioned that. I don't question that. I believe that. He gave his life for us. But the love of the Father and the love for the Father, many times when we begin to pursue all that thing on the vanity, those things become idols. So the love of the Father for him is not in us. Powerful. And sometimes when we allow those things to be all consuming, we push out the love that the Father has for us. And pretty soon, when you know that you're loved by God, all of that vanity fades. Nothing matters as much as knowing that you're loved by God. How peaceful is that? How freeing is that? And then knowing that nothing else matters to us than loving God himself. I love him and he loves me. We're not going to allow all those things that the enemy tries to throw in the midst of all of that, our flesh, when nothing else should matter. At the end of Ecclesiastes, if you've ever read the book, it is a insight into the life of a man that at one point possessed such incredible wisdom, and by the end of his life had been reduced to almost nothing because of vanity. In the beginning, he could play with all this stuff, and he said, well, I never even lost my wisdom. He said, so I came to hate life because everything done here under the sun is so troubling. Everything is meaningless, like chasing the wind. Satan has us chasing the wind. A whole society, a whole bunch of people, whole world just chasing things that you'll never be able to grasp hold of because they are not able to be grasped. It's always shifting. It's always changing. There's no satisfying the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. There's just no satisfying it. And so that was down there in chapter 2. I came to hate life because everything done here under the sun is troubling and everything is meaningless. It's vanity. But by the end of Ecclesiastes, we watch this journey. Solomon boils it down to just a few things that matter. Ecclesiastes 12, 13, and 14 says, that's the whole story. Here now is my final conclusion. Fear God and obey his commands, for this is everyone's duty. God will judge us for everything we do, including every secret thing, whether good or bad. What matters? Fear God, obey his commandments. Those who fear God, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. In all you're getting, get wisdom. Here's the deal. I believe for Solomon it came around full circle. I believe it will for all of us. I believe that God does that even in the life of the church. How much have we been doing has all been vanity? How much of our frustration is over worthless things? How much of what we've pursued have been things that really don't even matter, and in the big scheme are meaningless and fade away? I think Solomon came to the end of his life when I'm done with doing meaningless, vain things. I want to do what makes a difference in light of eternity. I'm appreciative of friends that you can have real conversations with. I love to laugh. I love to have a good time. I love to do the things that friends, the conversations we have together. But I love these kind of conversations that really just get into the heart of who we are. Priceless. Meaningful, not meaningless. My prayer has been, Lord, deal with the vanity and the pride and the ego in my life. And I think that for any of us who are honest and want to make a difference in life and want to do something that makes a difference in the kingdom, I think the vain things will always be an issue. I think any of us who stand before people, whether it be 50, 100, 25, 1,000, we all want to be liked. We all want to be well thought of. We all want to be seen as successful. People listen to us. I think the struggle with vanity will always be an issue. That's why humility is a daily choice, where God says that we must take up our cross daily and follow Him. For some of us with personalities that want to accomplish things, I think that becomes even more necessary. That we fear God, obey His commands, know that we're loved by God, and just live our life to please Him. Not worried about everyone's opinion, not concerned about how everyone sees us, but just knowing that the love of the Father is in us. Well, listen, thanks for taking time to join me today for this podcast. I hope it's been a blessing to you. I hope it's challenged you. I hope it's encouraged you. There's a freedom in all this. Freedom. We don't have to live for the pleasure of anyone else, but for the glory of the King. Listen, may the Lord bless you and your family. And until next time, we'll see you soon.